Welcome, everybody, to the Real Dealz podcast, one of the top real estate investing podcasts on iTunes for the last 7 years. This is the place to be for investing strategies you can actually use, expert interviews, and, of course, some good old-fashioned entertainment. Now, here's your new hosts, Elliott Smith and Cole Rudd Johnson. What's up, everybody out there in listener land? This is episode 351 of the Real Dealz podcast, and as always, or at least as this week, I am your host, Tucker Merrihew, and I want to thank you guys for joining me. I'm back this week, at least just for the intro anyway. I actually was part of the interview, or the main part of this show as well, and Elliott and Cole said, hey, why don't you hop on and do the intro? And I said, well, I kind of like talking on the microphone, so, I'll do it for you guys, sure. But beyond that, this week's show is a really cool one. It's one that, we've been talking about doing for a while now. Being that it's the end of the year, it made sense to kind of bookend the year with this show. We may do another one next week, or they may release one next week, but maybe not. Either way, this is kind of the bookend show for the year. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to sit down, all three of us, and we wanted to kind of take a look back at this crazy year with all of the crazy shit that went on, specifically Corona, right? Corona hit and it changed everybody's lives, March-ish of last year. But on top of changing everybody's lives, it really caused all of us in the real estate business to kind of look around and audit our business and say, okay, what are we doing that maybe we should change? What are we doing that maybe we don't like? What do we want to do moving forward? Do we even, do we enjoy what we're doing? Do we like the people that work for us? Do we like the model that we're using? Do we like the marketing strategies that we're using? Do we like the types of projects we're taking on? I think everybody kind of went through a self-audit phase this year because everything kind of slowed down for a couple of months there. There was a lot of looking inward and trying to figure out if the path you're on is truly the one that you want to be on. And so what we're going to do this week is we're going to sit down and we're going to talk through everything that both myself, Elliott, and Cole learned over this past year, kind of taking that 2 months and kind of looking inward and kind of tweaking our businesses and changing our businesses. And the reality is that, we made some big changes personally for my own business. We moved offices. We left the city of Portland completely. Now we're purely in Lake Oswego. We have an absolute defined farm area without question that we don't compromise on in terms of where we take on projects. Whereas before, we had a fairly defined farm area, but we would take on projects outside of that. And so there's just a lot of clarity, both mental clarity, but also in terms of the business that happened over the course of this year. And so we kind of talk about all that in addition to then looking forward, right? And, what are we going to do with 2021 now that we've got these kind of retooled, rebuilt versions of our businesses? And, of course, you have my business, you have Elliott's business, you have Cole's business. They're all very different animals, same underlying way that we make money, which is with real estate, but we all make money in a slightly different type of way. We all have slightly different types of projects. We all have slightly different types of marketing. We all are just slightly different, which is normal, right? Real estate is kind of a funny thing. Everybody wants to mimic exactly what maybe somebody else's business is, but the reality is that, your business should be your own thumbprint in a way. It may incorporate some of the bigger concepts and the bigger ideas that other people's businesses have. But everybody's business runs slightly different with different people and different projects, different areas, different marketing. And so anyway, listening to both myself, Elliott, and Cole talk about the ways that we've tweaked our businesses, there will definitely be some overlap for all of you guys. Now, some of you guys may relate to my business more than others. Some of you guys may relate to Cole or Elliott's business more than mine, which is fine. But that's why we wanted to collectively talk about it, all three of us, so that hopefully, whatever we mention applies to all of you in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to look back, and then we're going to look forward, and we're going to talk about what we've got coming up in 2021, which hopefully will be a better year for everybody, moving forward now that, we've all kind of tweaked our businesses and made them the best version that they can be as we then springboard into 2021. So that's what's going to be this show. And, I also wanted to kind of take a second here and just kind of look back at, this year as a whole with the podcast, right? And ultimately, where it's gone and where it's going. And the reality is that I've been doing this show, well, I stepped away from the show, but I've been doing podcasting now for, over 7 years. And, that's a long time. It's a long time to be on the microphone. It's been a complete joy. It's been something that I've got a lot of fulfillment from. I've met tons of people from our DFA community to our REI Deal Generator higher end coaching program to users of our D4D app to just listeners of the show, right? It's been an amazing journey for me to be a part of it. And I was ultimately one of the kind of first shows that came out in this real estate investing space. There was Bigger Pockets had just started. Sean Terry and Flip to Freedom was out there. Justin Williams had just started his show. There was a first batch of guys and shows before, BP got paid and Brandon got famous and all those things, right? That's when this show started. And, there was this run-up phase. There was this initial phase of the show it was a lot of fun because it was new and we were, growing like crazy and we had a bunch of listeners and it was just a really fun time. And, over time, you start to lose a little bit of your momentum, or I should say motivation, to continue to put out content on a weekly basis. And, obviously I'm still motivated, but there's a pinnacle point when you start anything new where, you ramp up to that. And that's kind of the most fun stage for you as the content creator. And, after about 7 years, honestly, I just need a little break from creating content on a weekly basis, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a long run, right? But in order to get that break, I didn't want to let the show just kind of drift off, where so many shows do. And we'd spent the last 7 years building this show and building this audience and connecting with so many of you guys. So ultimately, what I wanted to be able to do, and I've been looking at for this, for a long time now. Maybe not a long time, but for the past year, I've been looking for somebody or somebodies that I can kind of pass the baton to, that I can hand the reins to, that I can then let them take the show, reinvent the show to some extent, rebrand the show to some extent, still take the core values of the show and what has made it great over the last 7 years, but add their twist to it and continue to build the audience with their experience and their stories and their insight. And, I've been fortunate enough to find those two individuals in Elliot and Cole, and now they're committed to taking this show to their own pinnacle in 2021 and continuing to grow it and make it into their own. And that's going to be an awesome thing to see. So that's where the show's going. I'll still be behind the scenes, of course, as I mentioned before, helping get the show produced, giving some input, advice, continuing to build all of our communities for everybody that wants to be a part of our DFA. Use our Driving for Dollars app. Of course, use our Call Magic services and some of our other programs as well. So I'll be here the whole time behind the scenes, but they'll be here on the microphone on a weekly basis, kind of creating content, interacting with you guys, and ultimately building a relationship with the listener base on an ongoing basis. So that's what you can look forward to moving forward. They're going to rebrand it. There's some really cool segments they're going to be instituting, which for many of you guys that maybe listened to the show back in the day, or if you listened to some of our first episodes, way back in 14 and 15 and 16, we had a lot of really cool segments to the show. We had Direct Mail's Greatest Hits. We ran out of, a lot of our hate calls, so we had to kind of discontinue that segment for a while. People just got a lot more direct mail, and they didn't get as angry about it after a while. But we had these segments and they were very popular, and so Elliot and Cole are going to create their own segments moving forward, and they're going to put their own twist on it. And so I'm really excited about what the show is going to be moving forward, and ultimately I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And for those of you guys that resonated with me, maybe you'll also resonate with them, and some of you guys that maybe didn't resonate as much with me, you may resonate more with them. So variety is the spice of life, as they say, and that's the hope with the show moving forward. We want to give you a little variety. We want to give you a little bit different vantage points, different perspectives, just like today's episode, but then obviously moving forward into 2021 and with all the episodes. And, maybe I'll be back again here and there, but it's in good hands. So you guys should be excited. The show is going to do nothing but improve and get better and better as we head into 2021, and I'll be here behind the scenes making sure that that's the case. So that's what you guys can look forward to. This week's show, as I said, is a great opportunity to be a fly on the wall, to sit down with myself, Cole, and Elliot and talk about everything 2020, and then, of course, some big announcements that I also have for myself in 2021. And, you get to know us a little better as well. So, without further ado, one last thing I should say. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy your new year. If I don't chat with you, do whatever Christmas looks like for you. And, hopefully you guys get a little rested, recharge the batteries, and you can hit the ground running first week of January, because that's usually when the phones start to blow up again anyway with all the marketing that we do and going and seeing sellers. So enjoy the show. Enjoy your holidays, everybody, and we'll see you on the flip side. All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did.
What's going on, Real Dealz podcast listeners? We have a great show today. I'm pretty excited. I got not only Cole Root Johnson staying at my house, flew in yesterday, and now we got the GOAT coming back, and we're going to spitball. You're going to be a fly on the wall for the next hour and a half, and we're just going to talk. And I think it's going to be a great show, guys. Cole, how was your flight?
When the flight to Tri-Cities is easy. It's the plane barely flies. They put you up one of those things with like a half a propeller and you're here in an hour. So yeah. But it's good to be out here, man. It's I've been all over the place past couple of weeks. Arizona twice, skiing a couple of times, and out here in the beautiful, like the Maui of Washington.
Yeah, Tri-Cities, huh?
No, we're driving home from the airport. And he's looking around, and we're going through not the best part of town. He's like, "Why do you live here?"
Cole, I ask myself that same question every day.
Yeah. Tucker, what's going on? What have you been doing with all your free time, not doing Real Dealz podcast anymore?
I don't know. I'm having podcast withdrawals, guys. So I had to come back today. No, we got a lot going on. I shared some of it with you this past weekend that you're like, what the hell do you do all day? Because apparently everybody else does everything that you need to do. But I shared with you some of the battles that I'm responsible for fighting, one of which is crazy tree people, which will probably take this piece of content and put it out there and make me out to be a villain, because they've been taking old content that I've done in the past that just happened to be about the fact that we have to cut trees, because when you redevelop property, that's just a necessary fact. And so they put that out there to the neighborhood people and said, look at this guy. He's the Antichrist. He cuts trees and whatever. So anyway,
while they're living in their mansions that are brand new, that had trees on them before, but then they now don't want you to cut down trees.
Right. So I shared with you what some of the, I guess, things that people had been saying about me, and one of which, I guess I'll let you elaborate, but they essentially said I was going to, purge the world of trees, amongst other things. Giant massacre. I was a massacrist,
it was literally, they basically described Tucker like he was Hitler, and that the trees were marked with numbers, because I think they number the trees in like Oswego probably. but that was like their stamp from Auschwitz, and that he was like killing people like Hitler did in concentration camps. Literally, and no joke, people. Sent it to the city review planning board and wanted to put their name on there and thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's
While
crazy.
they living in a new house.
How much has that changed when you started building in Portland? Whenever you like, were
So
you coming at you that tough in the beginning?
no, like back in 2011 when we started doing new construction, which is basically when we had to start cutting some trees, right? Because when you do infill new construction, you basically have to expand the footprint of what was previously there, and most of the time, what was previously there was a smaller house. So when you live in Tree City, there's a lot of trees around these small footprint houses. So if you expand the footprint, you got to cut the trees. Back in 2011, keep in mind it was kind of everybody was kind of just trying to figure out how to get back to zero again, like money wise. And we were coming out of a terrible recession. And so nobody really cared too much. There was much more pushback on just like tearing down old, smaller houses. Like people put historic value to these old shit shacks for some reason. And that was crazy at that time, but they've now let that go, but now they're attached to the trees. And so anytime you cut those, they start to get crazy. Now, with that said, in the last, let's call it 2 years, it's gotten exponentially crazier. And now Portland is nuts for a variety of reasons. But in Portland, we can quantify like how much it's going to cost us, right? We cut a tree that's 36 inches or bigger. It's going to cost us 12 grand, right? Period. So we can account for it when we do our projects.
But it's a money grab.
It's a money grab. No question. Big time money grab. And let's face it, we're not short on trees here, right? And so, everybody right now is using the fact that, we're having a climate crisis and we can't cut one more tree in Lake Oswego because that's going to be the tipping point for the world, and all the terrible things that are going to happen, which is just absurd. But, in Lake Oswego, where we do most of our building, the challenge is that there is no rules really. Like the rules are for the last 6 months, for example, the one that I sent you, right? We've been working on this plan. We bought this property. We put a ton of work into designing the new house because when you build high-end real estate, like you have to design the right plan, the right house, because the right house on the right lot sells for a lot of money. The wrong house or the wrong lot or a combination of those two sell for a lot less money. So we designed the exact right house for this lot. And we minimized the tree cutting because we knew that, people were going to give us pushback. The city's going to give us pushback. It's just the general underlying culture here is that people don't want to see that happen. So we submit our plans. I spend the money on the plans. Let's put that out there, right? I spend like 20 grand on plans, right? And so we submit the plans to the city. We go through the approval process. The city approves our plans with the exception of the tree cutting. And then once the tree cutting element comes in, the public gets to give their 2 cents on whether or not they think we should cut our trees. And ultimately, then the city takes those comments into account and then issues their decision. In this case, the city will likely side with us, but we're still in limbo on that. And if they do, then the people of Lake Oswego that have already said they don't like what we're doing, they can appeal it. And if they appeal it, then they take us to the Development Review Commission, which basically pushes us out another month or two. And then if they don't like that decision, they can take us to City Council, which pushes us out another month or two. So it can expand our project timeline by another 4 to 6 months. And on top of that, we may have to go back to the drawing board and redraw our entire plans. We might scrap an entire year worth of work. So it's just crazy. So going back to Portland, we can account for the dollars that it's going to cost to cut trees. And Lake Oswego, I don't know if it's going to cost dollars, time, or both. I have no idea. So it's very frustrating.
Let me ask you this, Tucker, in case they do chop this up and they want to, somebody's listening and wants to, use this, because I did see that they're using your YouTube videos and things like that. So, okay, so you're maybe a year out, which then you have subs that aren't working. You have guys that are sitting at home and not maybe able to get work right away, right? Because you have to plan them out. You have increased costs maybe in lumber because, by the way, trees are getting cut down other places to build all these houses. I mean, obviously. So, I mean, we should protest those trees. But anyway, so the thought process is like you try to save the trees because one, you care about the trees because it increases value to a certain extent. People like it, people like it in that area. So you don't want to cut them all down. You're not just clear cutting lots and you try to build your plans around there. How hard is that, like as a developer builder, to want to build in Lake Oswego? And then what does that do to people when they want to buy a new house because nobody wants to build, or what's that do to housing? you know?
So this is kind of the unintended consequences that people don't take into account, right? And it's still playing out. So it's an opinion at this point, but I think it's a pretty educated opinion. But like, for example, this house we're building last week, and I'm not alone in this. So this is how every builder feels. But last week I was like, you know what? If we get this thing to the finish line, I'm jacking the price up 200 grand. Like, this has been absurd to deal with. And I'm not the only one going through this challenge, because every other builder faces the same thing. So what they're doing is they're constricting supply, and they're limiting the amount of supply that can come to market. And so by the time these houses make it to market, it's just, they're going to be increasing and more valuable to the builder, me, but there's going to be less of them on the market, which is going to put upward pressure on pricing. These new construction, amazing homes, right? There's just hardly any to choose from. And then you have a buyer pool that's very hungry for them, because it's very difficult to get these to market. So it's going to choke off the amount of supply, for like developable land. Like, there's some bigger chunks available around here, right? But like, I go look at them now and I'm like, okay, you got 26 trees on this lot. Like, this sounds like hell on wheels, right? Like, this sounds like a fight. Yeah, you could put 3 houses in here, but this is going to be a terrible fight. It's going to take forever. Like, do I really want to endure that? And so that's going to limit the number of builders that take on those fights. And B, it's going to push down the price that builders pay, right? They're like, okay, if I take on this price, I'm cutting, 100, 200 grand, 300 grand off the price, right? Because it's just, I don't know what I'm in for. I mean, I know it's going to be painful, but I don't know how painful, right? So it's just, I don't know. The saying is what? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, we're on that road right now.
And here's the thing. You have, like, it's not like people are flying in from California and buying every one of these big houses. People are moving up into these houses. So what you're doing is then you're limiting supply on the next level down, which is then limiting supply on the next level down, because people move up. And so then we have a homeless problem. People can't afford houses. There's no inventory. So you're limiting and constricting supply at the top, which trickles down to the bottom. We're constricting supply all across the board.
I think the summary of what's gone on since COVID started, like, you could just title it unintended consequences. Everything that's happening in Washington and most states right now, all the restrictions, the regulations, there's so many unintended consequences coming out. I know we're talking about trees, but I'm talking about, not even political at all, but shutting businesses down twice, or not letting you deal with your tenants. So I know Seattle keeps pushing you back, and there's even a rule now, because we do a lot of off-market marketing where we can't, we get in trouble if we wholesale a house. If there's a tenant, if we even try to contact the tenant to even pay them to get out, it's a big no-no right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's a big no-no. The Attorney General is cracking down big time in Washington on off-market companies doing that. So
Jesus,
pretty much of a seller right now in Washington, if you want your tenant out, the only way to do it is to put it on the market and get the highest and best price. Because what sellers are doing is they would put it on the market, get the tenants out, and take it off the market. So now you can't even do that. It's just a mess. And so, I mean, the trickle-down effect of this, I think we're going to see, it's not even going to hit. It's going to be like aftershocks.
Yeah. For
the next 5 years of just, holy crap, what do we really do? What's really going on here?
Yeah, and here's the thing. We bought 37 units this year. We bought a 24, 2 duplexes, and an 8 unit. All affordable housing. Like the one in Kennewick is $795 a month studio. It's affordable housing. We work with our tenants, so we're doing more entry-level affordable housing. You know what we're not going to do anymore? Because we had to go buy these, fix them up, and make them better to keep them affordable for people to live in there. Yeah, we do make money, but it's, we're like having to put capital money into the property to then get money back. My wife and I decided we're not buying rentals in Washington anymore. Like, literally, we're going to look at other states. So what you're going to have is these unintended consequences. You're going to push all the people that create supply or have supply and push them out. And then what are we going to be left with? Then the tenants that are paying and trying to get by, they're going to have worse living conditions. They're going to have a harder time. It's hard. Because like you said, people are trying to do the right thing and help people, but nobody knows the right way to do it. So it's just tough. So anybody out there listening,
I agree. I mean, Portland's doing the same thing. I mean, every landlord I know in Portland is like, do I want to be a landlord in Portland anymore? Right. I mean, I have one lingering rental in Portland. When the lease is up in March, guess what? I'm 1031 in that money. I'm out of there. Peace, So it's crazy. But I do agree, Cole. This year it is the year of unintended consequences. And I mean, I've been pretty vocal about my opinions on, what's going on with this whole Corona thing. And ultimately, I feel like if you're afraid of it, if you're concerned about it, don't go out, limit your interaction. Like my mom, for example, she's very concerned about potentially getting it from my kids so that then she doesn't give it and kill grandma, right? Which I get. So she doesn't come around the kids. Totally fair. And I tell her that all the time. But on the flip side, I think I told you guys this, but I had bowling league start up like 3 weeks ago for the first time in 6 months or 7 months or however long it's been. Feels like friggin' forever. And I went there and the guys, the bowling alley people, they built all these dividers. They put all this money in. They did all these things to be able to safely have bowling league again, have people go there and open up. And then 3 days after that bowling league started up again, our lovely governor shut everything down, bowling alleys being part of that shutdown. And 3 days after that, they closed for good. They've been in business 58 years. They're gone, right? There's another place that my kids go to do gymnastics and other activities. They've been in business for 38 years or 35 years, whatever it is. I went there as a kid. They just announced yesterday they're closing down, right? So like you've got all these businesses closing down, but then you could go to Costco and stroll up and down the aisles with a gazillion people in there, handling all the stuff you want, touching all the stuff you want. And that's okay. And it just seems crazy to me. So I think the unintended consequence of this year is, to wrap it back to the rental stuff you're talking about. I feel like we're on a path of like small businesses getting squeezed out and small landlords are getting squeezed out. And that's really what it is, because small landlords don't want to deal with all of the BS that's going on. And small business just has a real tough time right now, in certain categories.
Yeah. I mean, we were in Arizona talking about this too. Kind of froze.
I guess.
Oh, we were in Arizona talking about this to a buddy. We were down there visiting and talking about the gaps this is creating. From like, if we already thought we had a wealth gap, like this is just, taking that and putting on steroids, because you get, people who, are doing better economically, and there's more opportunity for them right now in a lot of ways. And then on the lower end, there's less, and we're just destroying the middle class right now completely.
We're doing the opposite of what you want, what they want, what the left wants to happen.
Yeah. I mean, this is like a year of have and have nots, right? Like the line between have and have not has been, it's never been more obvious, right? I mean, I was talking about this with my title gal on one of the last closings I went to, and I was like, it's a crazy year because you've got people that are just, they can't pay their bills. Their businesses are shut down. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears into the stuff that they've been running their businesses for the last however many years. And they're just getting, gutted. And then on the other side, like the title gal I talked to, like they're having the best year ever. Right. Which is like, how in the hell does that happen? And so like the last go around in 2008, 2009, there was no like, I'm having my best year ever and somebody else gets gutted. Everybody got punched in the nose, right? And some people figured out a way to claw their way back or find a little niche that works. But this time around, it's like, I've never seen something just so blatant in terms of like, these people are killing it and these people are getting killed. And it's just, it's nuts, man. The unintended consequences of that, Cole, are going to be huge in my opinion.
Yeah, why can I fly in a tube with 200 people from Washington to Arizona twice in a week, or we're breathing the same air for 2.5 hours, but I can't go and eat at a restaurant where I'm at a table with my family for an hour? Like, it makes no sense to me. I mean, that's, yeah.
So anyway, I mean, this is a rabbit trail everybody's discussed. Obviously, we're not experts, it's just opinions. But anyway, so being the year that it was, I know it's been a change year for me. I know there's a lot of people that are thinking about change. They've, you're whatever state you're in, you're thinking, I want to change this or that, or you're doing really well, or you want to grow. So we're going to kind of talk about our years in a review a little bit, how we've pivoted around this and what we're doing and planning for next year, because really we want to take you guys on a journey with us. As Cole's growing, as I'm growing, as Tucker's growing, you have had a journey with Tucker for 7 years as he's grown from doing flips and wholesales to new construction and Street of Dreams and all these things. And now you're going to kind of get to see again, the new generation come up and how we do it. So let's talk about this year. So Tucker, why don't we start with you, what you've kind of done this year, and we'll go with that first, then we'll all go around and then we'll go to round table for the 2021.
Cool. Yeah. I started off the year doing pretty similar to what we'd been doing for the previous few years. And then Corona hit. And the positive side of that is that there was about a month or two there where everybody took a pause, right? And they kind of looked around and they reassessed all the things that they were doing not only in their personal life, but for those of us that have businesses, we really looked at our businesses hard and we said, okay, what am I doing? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do that? What do I want the future of my business to look like? It allowed us to take a breather and really kind of analyze all that. So I'm thankful for that, because in that time, I kind of decided, all right, number one, do we want to do projects in Portland anymore? That because we were doing projects all over Portland. We had a pretty strong hold here in Lake Oswego, but we were doing projects all over. And at a certain point, I said, you know what, I don't want to do projects in Portland anymore. Not because at that point that I despised necessarily being in Portland. We were spread out, right? And so, because of that, we had a few more staff and things like that also to do additional marketing, and it was just a more complex, more costly business to run. And so I looked at it and I said, is it really worth it to me to run that slightly bigger version of this business? And I decided, no, it wasn't, because I ultimately felt like we could actually make more money and run a simpler business at the end of the day on many levels. And so what I did is, number one, we moved our office. We closed up our office that we had in Southwest Portland for about 14 years. And we moved it here into Lake Oswego, and it's all of about a minute from my house. So that move was probably the best decision that I've made in a long time. Number one, because it takes me 30 seconds to get to work now and to get home, which is awesome. But number two is we really changed exactly kind of where the lines are of where we'll take on projects and where we weren't, right? Before, we'd chase money and we'd go, if it was deal popped up, we'd go do it, right? Now, I mean, I have very hard lines in terms of, like somebody reached out to me last week and was like, hey, I've got this project in Portland. It looks like it's, a good one. Are you interested? Right. And I just said, no, I'm not, and I don't think we could wholesale it. It was a little more complex. It would have taken some development stuff and things like that. So it wasn't like a, simple, and it was a friend deal. And, I just didn't want to get in the middle wholesale, something like that. So, but I said no, because we're focused exclusively or almost exclusively on Lake Oswego. And so that's where we do all of our marketing. That's where we take on all of our projects. All of our projects are within 10 minutes of each other, just here in Lake Oswego. And so, we've created an entire, it also allowed us to double down on our marketing and make it much more definitive in terms of who we're going after, right? So when you go into a bigger area and a bigger, let's call it farm area, number of people, leads, all that, you're marketing to a lot of fat a lot of times, right? People that maybe you shouldn't necessarily spend money marketing to, but we do, because on the off chance of maybe, our services make sense for them at any given time, right? Now what we've done is we've really drilled down and we've created an entire list for our little city here of investment grade real estate, both visually and on paper. Right. So any tells on paper that say that it may be a good investment purchase, or visually via like Driving for Dollars lists and things like that.
Let's unpack that a little bit. What do you mean on paper? So, I mean, there's probably newer people listening. So if I'm looking at a map or looking and Tucker's really talking about getting in the zoning codes, guys, and understanding zoning and things like that, which you can find and learn on your county website. Why don't you dive into that a little bit, Tucker?
Yeah, some of it's like zoning code, like you said, right? Like larger lots, slightly higher density underlying zoning. So maybe there's multiple lots there, right? Another thing might be like pre-platted lots, like lots that have historical lot lines that can be confirmed. So it's a quick, you create 2 lots where there was 1, or 3 where there was 1, and you can do it in a matter of 2 weeks versus 15 months, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing is like a related party list, right? Of like transfers of houses, because we are flipping houses too. We're not just building, but houses that may have transferred for like a super low dollar figure, right? And then we'll basically scrub that list and determine which ones of those houses actually are investment grade properties that have a lot of equity. They kind of have the unearned equity phenomenon going on, where somebody bought it for super cheap. They didn't earn the equity over time. So lists like that, right? Trust lists. We market to a lot of people that own trusts for a long time, or they title their property in the name of trust for a long time. So all kinds of lists like that layered on top of our D for D stuff, which is the more obvious fixture stuff. And so that's created this absolute universe of leads that we market every single day, a variety of different ways, but we only do it within the confines of Lake Oswego here. And so it's just made the business a lot simpler to run. And, we're not trying to be a high volume operation anymore. We're trying to be a high margin operation. And so, and we have 2 buckets for that too. So it's not like it's just one bucket, but one bucket is our new construction, which, we've got one project now that's going to be a $3.5 million house sellout. Another one's going to be, when we get that one started, it'll be probably $2.5 million sellout. And that's kind of our longer term bucket, which is like a 6-month turn, give or take, when we buy a project, when we finish. And then we have our shorter term bucket, which is our renovate and put back to market, which we can do as quickly as we can possibly do it. Right. And so we try and only buy stuff that gives us the best margins in those two buckets. We're not wholesaling too much. I sort of wholesaled, I guess. I didn't really wholesale. I sold off some land last month to another builder because it was basically a piece of property that had historic lot lines that I confirmed, and then I sold it off as 2 lots. I bought it as 1, and we made a good profit. And it was just going to sit kind of in inventory. I wasn't going to get to building those out for a few more months, so I said, screw it, let's just sell it, right? But we're trying to buy the best projects we can in a definitive area, which is Lake Oswego, and try and make the most money that we can. And we're not wholesaling much because it's harder to find projects in a smaller area, right? So we just take everything down and we retail it or resell it in some capacity to maximize our margins.
Let me ask you this. So people listening that, they've always said, go get a huge list. And I know you can do cold calling, do wider lists, or you can maybe you're in a smaller market. And so you're now, how big is Lake Oswego?
It's about 40,000, 45,000 people.
And you think you can being sniper direct marketing, you can make a really good living doing that in 45,000 people?
Yeah, we can make way more doing that than we could going all over town with my model, with my business model. Yeah.
So really you're just taking and you're finding the premium A+ leads. You're maybe upping your spend on marketing, a higher cost per piece or per, touch marketing, and being more sniper approach and becoming an expert in this really small, this niche area.
Pretty much. Although I would say it's a mix of higher cost and lower cost, right? So like that's what we're doing right now. We're sending, specialty mail, and we're sending specialty postcards that we've designed, right? So it's kind of a mix of those things. The postcards we send constantly. The specialty mail is very more sniper kind of strategies. So it really, our cost is not tremendously high. If we were like to bring it back to cold calling, which is a great option, the challenge is that we're in a very tight area. So we would run through our cold call list. I mean, I don't know how much data we could pull for just like us. I mean, we'd probably run through it in 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And then we'd have to cycle through. So it's not the best fit for cold calling based on the way, or in, cold calling on the long term for the small area that I've defined as where we want to do business. Doesn't mean cold calling is a bad option by any means. It just means for what we're trying to do, it's just a smaller number of projects at a higher margin in a smaller area.
I feel like everyone eventually kind of ends up in that bucket. The longer they're in business, like I find myself trying to constantly shrink my kind of target area. You just get to know one or two kinds of properties better and run it that way. Especially since Corona started, I feel like everyone's kind of shifting to, okay, how can I get as lean as possible? Make my life as easy as possible.
Yeah. We let one guy go that, I kind of kept him on just as like a nicety for like 7 years. And I was hoping every day he'd come in.
Is he your handwriter guy? That way I would walk in there. Yeah.
I kept hoping he'd just come in and say, I'm done, I'm quit. And I'd be like, yes, finally. But he never did. And so I finally told him, I was like, look, man, we're moving, and he wasn't going to make the drive over here anyway. So it was a good split, and hopefully he's doing better things with his time now. But we slimmed down a little bit in terms of hours and people. And I like the way the business runs better now. I really do. It just feels better to me. And
is it less hectic too? Like less, more, you're more concise on what your vision is, and the team knows it's more, this is the vision, and it's not hectic. We're going here.
Yeah, exactly. Like when a lead comes in, it's like, it's a hell yes or a hell no. Right. I mean, that's basically what it becomes. And, it makes the clarity of what we're trying to accomplish much better. And so that's, I guess, the maturation of my personal business this year. That's really kind of it in a nutshell.
But it's taken time, right? If anybody's listening and is newer, it's like, there's nothing wrong with, if you're in Seattle or Oklahoma City or a bigger city, to go doing cold calling or doing, more machine gun marketing, because you need to learn how to talk to people and learn what a deal is, right? So you guys have learned that skill, how to talk to people. You've honed it down over time, and now we're at the top tier level. It just takes time to get there. Like, I'm not there. I can't do it, Tucker. I couldn't go to move to Lake Oswego and be Tucker.
But I think you have to start broader to kind of, because you want to find your niche. Like Tucker, I mean, when you got into real estate, it wasn't like, oh, I know I'm born to build houses.
Yeah.
Like you got to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're a mortgage guy.
Do a lot of stuff in a big area.
Dirty mortgage guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of just, figured it out over time.
Yeah. Which I think is the fun part. Like everyone wants to just jump right to one thing. If it doesn't work out, they get out and just try it. Market to a whole city, figure out what you like to work with. If you do a couple deals on the development side and you like it, explore that more. If you're just flipping, explore that more. I don't think there's any reason to get out of the business because one thing doesn't work.
All right, podcast listeners, I want to take a quick break and I want to tell you about something I'm very passionate about, and that is our Deal Finders Academy, or the DFA, as many of you have probably heard me refer to it as. Now, the DFA has been around for almost 7 years, which is amazing that we've had it around that long, and we've had one hell of a track record with some of the biggest names from across this business having been a part of the DFA or are still a part of it today. And some of those names, just to drop a few on you, are Justin Silverio from Open Letter Marketing, Ryan Dossie from Call Porter, Jason Nickel from a little company called Lead Sherpa, Anson Young from Bigger Pockets, of course, many of you know him. How about Robert Hyder and Philip Vincent, two fine gentlemen from the greater St. Louis area who need no introduction, are very well known. How about Mr. Danny O'Bannon, the original Spokane project, a guy that I pulled back out of a day job and turned him into a crazy successful real estate investor. And of course, Artem Tepler, who's building hundreds of millions of dollars worth of multifamily all over the greater Los Angeles area. And of course, last but not least, both Cole and Elliot, who are now the hosts of this show. So as you can see, the list goes on, and there's so many other people that I didn't mention there that I've gotten the good fortune of getting to know and that are a part of the community now that are just amazing people and even more amazing investors. But for you that are a listener of the show that may be thinking, hey, you know what? I might be interested in joining that group. Here's what you get, right? Well, number one is you get to be a part of this amazing community. You get the connections. You get everything that comes along with a small and very tight-knit type mastermind, a group that isn't so big that you feel like you can't converse with people, you can't have conversations, because that's where you kind of get lost in the weeds. You want one that is just big enough that it's got reach and you've got these people that you can connect with that are amazing in their own right, but not so big that you just feel overwhelmed. And that is exactly what the DFA is. We have about 120, 125 people in the group, which is just the perfect size. And the reason why it stays at that size is because we don't overlap investors, right? One investor per one area. And that's why most people stay with us for a very long time, because by being a part of the group, you get access to all of our secret marketing strategies, negotiation strategies, tips, tricks, everything else you could possibly think of so that you can have those competitive advantages in your area and also be able to utilize the network that the DFA is, which, as you can tell, it's an amazing network. I do business with lots of people that have been in it or are currently in it right now, and plenty of other people in the group have made lifelong friendships and business partnerships within the group also. So if you're interested in joining the DFA, which I strongly encourage you to do, go to thedealfindersacademy.com, book a call, you'll chat with Dan, we'll see if we've got room in your market for you, and if we do, we'd love to make you our next DFA member.
No, I agree. And you know, the biggest component to why we can run it this way is because we do high-end new construction, right? So, you know, that's kind of the biggest piece as to why we can niche it way down, right? So, but I mean, I'm curious, like, so my business is kind of on one side of the spectrum. Cole's, yours is kind of on the other, right? Like in terms of what we do, I'm curious how you're running yours, to be honest, because we're kind of like two different animals.
And I'm right in the middle. Yeah. I'm trying to decide who I want to be.
Yeah.
When I grow up, do I want to be Cole when I grow up or Tucker?
So what do you mean grow up? You have to go back
to
I'm old, you're young, remember?
So like going back a year to like January, December 2020, like beginning this year, I mean, my life and business looked completely different. I had a big, we had a 10-person team in office. We were not running lean. We did not know what we were doing. We weren't tracking anything. We were throwing everything we could against the wall, every kind of marketing, every kind of list, everything against the wall. We were making money, like we were doing well. But I was probably making, for the amount I was working, I was probably making like $15 an hour, honestly. So I was locked inside my office.
About what you're worth.
about what I'm worth. go.
You're gonna be like the guy. We're gonna move offices and hope you just don't come.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it was a mess. And then COVID, I remember when COVID kind of slowly hit, if you remember, I don't know in Oregon, but in Washington, at least all the hard money dried up. So guys were, there's only 2 or 3 guys buying. And I was like, this is a good opportunity to figure this out. At the same time, I kind of went through a split with my partner. I did go through a split with my partner. And so it was the perfect time. Like, we went to pretty much zero. The business kind of stopped, came to a halt. And I was able to, kind of build it back up what I thought at the time was the right way, which is a lot leaner. We pulled back. We were in like 6, 7 different markets. We pulled back all to Washington. We really got dialed in on, 4 or 5 really good buyers for us and what they want to buy, and kind of went after that stuff. And it's completely changed our life. We were doing 8 different kinds of marketing, and we brought that all back to cold calling and texting. That's all we do now. And I mean, our profit margins are insane. We're running like 85% profit margin. Before COVID, we were probably 35 to 45. And now it's 80, 85. So, I mean, I'm sleeping at night better. If we don't have a great month, one month, it doesn't really matter. Because I mean, we have, running at a 15% overhead. It's, it doesn't really hurt that bad. So, but now going into 2021 and, at the end of 2020 is really taking those lessons and starting to build up a little bit again. But still kind of playing in that ballpark of being super, super intentional with what we want to go after, how much we want to spend, what we want to make, and treating it like an actual business instead of just, I was chasing checks for the last 3 years. Like, I just wanted to be you see all those checks out there when you get into real estate. Like, the more checks, the better, the more deals, the better. But it's not true at all. So yeah, that's what my business looks like the past year.
Nice.
It's interesting to hear that. I mean, I think everybody goes through this kind of maturation process, right? I mean, even within like the different niches of how our businesses run, because mine runs very different than yours, but they each grow, right? Into kind of a better version of themselves. And then Elliot, you're kind of in the middle, really, in terms of how yours works.
Yeah, 2020 was a weird year for me personally. I coming into 2020, I had super high hopes. We had an operations manager who was starting to do really good. He's getting ready to graduate from college, and we're implementing him more in the business. And we had set some really lofty goals. We had set, I wanted to add $4,000 a month in monthly cash flow for the year. I wanted to buy 32 projects, which was about 2 more a quarter than normal, and so not a huge increase there. And then we wanted to have 40 lots mutual or under contract or bought for development. And so coming in, I was working on an 5 lot subdivision, and we were working on that in February, and ended up playing that out for a while, and then ended up losing that. And I think I've talked about that before, how we kind of lost that. And then we were doing good though. We got 7 under contract, right? And then Corona kind of hit right in March. So we were right at basically almost at our goal, doing really good momentum. And then Corona just freaking slammed the brakes. One seller ghosted me, things, started, kind of falling through. We ended up buying 3 duplexes and a couple flips and buying a couple of those projects. But then we started getting, because we've always been direct mail guys, and we started getting a lot more angry phone calls. And I think people were like, everybody was kind of hunkering in, and everybody was at home, and everybody was scared and didn't know what was going on. So they took it as very opportunistic. And so I said, I don't want to be that guy to a certain extent. I don't want to be, an opportunistic, look like a greedy asshole. And it's always comes back to my partner and I always say, not that any of this stuff, what we do would get us on the front page, but is this going to get us on the front page of the local newspaper? And is it going to be a positive story or a negative? It's on the front page, it's probably a negative. So I just wanted to step back a little bit.
I mean, yeah, but like Washington, Oregon, you can be the best dude ever, and if you're still going to be on the front page in a bad way.
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
You can't really control that.
So, but it's just a good ethical, it's just a good goalpost, kind of sight line. So we pulled back our marketing. We stopped marketing. We were trying to do a little bit of stuff, and I got really depressed. I kind of shut in. I tend to, when I don't have things to do and I'm not talking to people and things, I shut in and I got depressed. I was sleeping until 3 or 4. Wasn't golfing. Wasn't, even if the golf courses were open, got depressed. All the way through April, and then. It's funny because I met Cole in April. We went and hung out with our mutual friend Taro, and I met him up in St. Katie. He was up there, and I think you were kind of coming at maybe in the same mindset, like things are coming out of a rough season.
Yeah, definitely a rough season. I mean, it was Yeah, I mean, we were kind of a different mindset. We were like putting our foot on the gas on marketing when COVID started. Once the hard money kind of came back in the picture, people were buying. Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting.
Yeah, that first, it was like the first 2 weeks of or like first week of April or something.
We were both like fat slobs.
Yeah, we were both fat slobs. I gained weight over COVID, and so then I was like, well, maybe we'll try cold calling. So I met Cole, and so we started doing some cold calling, and that then we started trickling in some direct mail again, and started getting some good traction in the cold calling. I'm like, hey, Cole, I think I can help with the scripts because I always want to control everything, and then we ended up turning that into a business. And so that's been really cool and been good. But then my operations manager, which I did not a good job because I am I found out yesterday, I'm more the visionary and I sell people. It's like I almost sell people that want to work for me and sell them on this dream, but then I forget to tell them it's hard work and forget just like where they're at in the process. And I'm selling them level 10 and they're at level 1 or 2. And so, I'd sold this dream, and then he really wanted to be a cop. And so we ended up parting ways in July, and then that kind of screwed me because he was helping me on a lot of stuff. So it kind of, that changed, and then we started working on the call center, and then we've kind of been buying some flips here and there. It's been really like inconsistent, very inconsistent, but then we bought a bunch of rentals, and it's been an Elliott type of year because it's been very scatterbrained. So it kind of stresses my wife out. It's been kind of all over the board. And that's been our biggest struggle, like biggest challenge for this year. But I mean, all in all, I look back as a good year. We added 37 units, almost $3.5 million worth of real estate. We partnered on the 24, we're quarter owners, and then a third on this one that we just closed last week. A couple of duplexes, built some good equity. Like if we would have sold some of these, we still would have had a better year financially, I think. But we built good equity, good cash flow. We hit the cash flow goal. We didn't hit the other two. We got closer, but it is what it is. It wasn't a total L for the year. So made some great friends, took over the podcast. I think that's been pretty exciting. I think I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Tucker, but right when I first started and met you, and I said, hey, I think I want to do this podcast with Stuart Fox. Remember Stuart Fox? Yeah. So, and I'm like, and it's going to be like the podcast idea was a new kid getting into real estate with an old bull, new kid in the old bull or whatever. And you're like, Elliot, why don't you figure out how to do real estate before you do a podcast? So you've always probably known in the back of your head, and that was the right choice, right? Because you know me and my ideas.
I mean, you like to talk.
Yeah, I like to talk, but I'm always, it would have taken me away from what I needed to do. And so when you said you want to take over the podcast, man, shit, I about jumped through the ceiling. I was so ready to go.
Well, I mean, I gave you guys a run at it to just see how you do. Because I mean, let's face it, podcasting it's a lot of work, as you guys found out. Like running the show for 7 years prior to this, it took a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and without Dan too. I mean, there's no way this show gets to the air every week. And so it's a lot of work. And so I wanted to first make sure you guys were, I guess, had eyes wide open in terms of what that takes. Because the podcast graveyard is big out there in terms of people that start and they get a few episodes in, maybe they get 10 episodes in, and they don't get maybe the download numbers they want, and they're not selling stuff right away. And they're like, fuck this, I'm done, whatever. And it's like, it's not about either of those two things though. That's the thing people don't realize. It's about building connection with your audience and building a community over time. And if you continue forward and you commit to it, you'll do that. It's, and that's what people don't get. And that's really the most rewarding part of all of this. The download numbers, they don't mean anything at the end of the day. I mean, it's a metric, I guess, but at the end of the day, like, Bigger Pockets has a lot more downloads than we've ever had, but we've had a lot of downloads nonetheless. But it's not the downloads that mean anything. It's the people that I met. I met you guys through the podcast, right? I've met everybody in our DFA. I've met Justin Silverio. I've met everybody in our high-end coaching program. A lot of our Call Magic customers. Like I have
the guys you had on the show. Artem reached out to you, and I mean, I wouldn't have met Artem without the show.
Yeah. So like, that's the power of the podcast, not the download numbers, not the, the products that people sell and gloat about and all that. It's really the connections you make and the relationships you build. And that's what a podcast is meant for. And so I just wanted to make sure you guys were in for the long haul. I knew you were excited to get it going, and obviously it appears that you guys are. So it's awesome.
I equated a lot to like business, because so many, like you said, there's a big graveyard of podcasts, is a bigger graveyard of businesses. People get that initial burst of motivation. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a business. And you go through like that valley of despair. We're like, oh, this maybe isn't like as cool. This is a little harder than I thought. Let's just drop it. But most people who have successful podcasts also have successful businesses or careers, whatever they're doing, because you can kind of get through that period of, oh, this is hard, which I mean, a couple weeks ago, I think me and Elliot were like, oh, this is harder and more time consuming than we thought.
Because we're like, we had to plan on guests, and we're like, shit, we forgot to get, like, we couldn't get a guest for Thanksgiving because we forgot about it. And we're like, shit, we need to plan it out. So we're trying to stay 1 week ahead now. But it's the same conversation, Tucker, and I think anybody can really take this right now in their business. Same conversation we had on Call Magic a couple weeks ago, where like we initially started, we were doing really good. And then we hit this kind of like, not that we're leveling off in any sense, but now we probably don't need to hire anybody yet to start a role, but we need to grind a little bit more, and we have our own businesses. So it's like that valley. And that's the cool thing about having Tucker, and, go back and listen to Tucker's podcast and his growth over the years. But like, that's why he's a partner in the call center as well, is that, you go through those valleys and you have the wisdom to say, hey guys, we're just in one of these valleys. Like, here's what it takes to get to the other side. And we need to pull our boots on and do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember on that call, I was like, yeah, it's a little bit harder than I thought. I'll never forget the look. He was like, yeah, that's what.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember an interview that I did on somebody else's show, and they were like, super stoked. They were like, we got 1,200 downloads. And I was like, that's cool. That's cool. But they were like, the show was all about like the download numbers that they got. And they were like 3 episodes in, or 2 episodes. I was like their second or third guest. And I was like, that's cool, but it's not what the show's about, right? Like you got to keep it in perspective. And so, I think you guys have it in perspective. I mean, obviously, download numbers are solid compared to a lot of the competition. And they'll continue to get better as you guys reinvent the show. But it's about the journey. It's about committing to it. And it's about connecting with all the people that listen. Because, I mean, there's a lot of, people that do podcasts that have a very wide niche, right? Like the motivational space, the business space, like it's huge, right? Our space is not that big. So it's like, how can we be the best show that we can be to connect with the smaller audience that we have, right? That's the goal, right? Like that's the quintessential goal. That's the best thing that you can possibly do. And so...
Well, you look at comedians, taking comedians as an example, right? You have comedians that will go sell out, stadiums, right? Madison Square Garden. And then they'll go, I hear Joe Rogan all the time. He's like, we're going to the comedy club that fits 100 people or 50 people, or Dave Chappelle and these guys. It's like, there's different, it's not about the numbers. It's about going and doing one. I like to talk and I like to do those things. And I think Cole's got a lot of wisdom and he likes to do this as well. And so it's like, who cares? 100 people, 3,000, 3 million people will friggin' do it. I mean, Bigger Pockets has a wider reach. They get quite a few downloads a month, but they're always, every podcast, they're like, what's an assignment contract? If somebody says an assignment contract, they're always geared towards that entry level guy. This one, now you followed Tucker along his journey. Hopefully you grew. Now maybe we have the next wave of guys that's going to follow us along our journey and help watch us grow.
I think the main reason I decided to do it is because, like, looking back in 2020 is how much just one relationship can change everything. And I think people, especially listening to starting out in real estate, like, we're so caught up in, business stuff, but it's so important to also focus on relationships. Like if I wouldn't have met Elliot in April and, continue to build that, I wouldn't have met Tucker, wouldn't have a business. Like there's, all it takes is one relationship.
Yeah. You're one relationship from changing your world.
Whole life.
Yeah. Your whole life. Yeah. It could be a wife. It could be you never know that girl you bump in the supermarket, or it could be the guy you play golf with, or the seller you meet or whatever,
or Elliot's nanny.
Yeah.
I knew
that was great.
He was thinking, I knew that was, he was thinking of it.
She was here last night, by the way.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. We got into some stuff. She likes that Call Her Daddy podcast. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, I have.
It's that Barstool one that like.
Yeah. No, that's a doozy. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. We talked about that, but yeah, we talked about a lot of things.
That's Elliot likes to talk about anything. So
yeah, and I'm very open. I mean, that wide-ranging conversation.
All right, so kind of segueing here, Tucker, go to you again. Kind of moving into 2021. What do you think that'll look like business-wise? What changes do you foresee coming, not just economically, politically, but for you and your business and life? What is your roadmap put together in your head so far look like for 2021 and beyond?
I think 2021 is going to be kind of the tale of 2 different years for me, because we're going to be really focusing in on what we're doing now for probably the first half of it. And then, we may pivot after that because I may be leaving Portland. And if that's the case, then I've got to look at what that next version of TTM looks like, at least on the sticks and bricks side. And so, I've said it many times, Arizona is pretty much number one on the list. And we want to go build high-end new construction in kind of Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, maybe some other areas around there. And so if we make that leap, I'm going to have to reinvent myself and my business to some extent down there and kind of start over in terms of figuring out our area, getting to know all the people, getting to know our sub base, all those things. So next year could be interesting. It's going to be a growth process for me, but I think we're going to take the same principles that I've now really made, or sharpened here this year with what we're doing and just take that exact model and transpose it on wherever it is that we go. The other decision I have to make is, what the current business here continues to do, types of projects, operationally, all that stuff. So, next year's a bit of a question mark, but I think overall, like we're moving forward doing these things because I do have confidence in the real estate market staying relatively strong. We've looked at a number of kind of cycle maps and, Shannon is in the DFA has posted, he's got a guy that he follows. And basically, he's been preaching this cycle map of like 2024, 2025 being the potential downside of this market. Right. And I tend to agree with him because we've got rates that are committed to be low through 2023 at this point. I don't think that we can have 15% year over year appreciation without some sort of backlash to that. And I think the backlash in this case isn't going to be necessarily markets falling off a cliff, but I do think we'll have some prolonged flattened values for, affordability to catch up with the market. Although if you look at an affordability graph now, people say it's more affordable because of rates and costs and things like that. But ultimately, you can't have that type of appreciation without some sort of a step back or a freeze in valuations for an extended period of time, in my opinion. So I think that real estate wise, next year is going to be a lot like this year. Inventory levels are crazy low, right? So the winner in this world that we operate in is really he who can start off-market conversations and find inventory that's not on the market. And Cole, you're really good at that. Elliot, you're really good at that. I'm really good at that. So I think our businesses are going to hum along and we're really going to be rewarded for having that skill set through 2020, 2021, I guess, right? Crazy that I'm saying that, but that's what next year is, right? Beyond that, I don't know. As the market softens, that skill set, it's really just about who remains in the business, right? As opposed to who's the best at that thing. So looking forward just for 2021, I think those of us that really are good at that will do really well. And there'll be a lot of people that are trying to jump on that train and figure it out. And, there'll be a lot of people that fail. There'll be some that succeed, but it's going to be a very challenging time to find inventory, in my opinion, just because of that. But those of us that know how to do it are going to do really well.
Yeah. Do you feel like the Fed has pigeonholed us with I think that's your phone, with your low rates, where like we can't go back and segment back to I just got quoted because we're looking at building a new house in Tri-Cities, which I didn't want to, but we might be doing that. Anyway, I got quoted at just right at the jumbo limit, 2.25 30 year with no buy down. And it's like, now what happens to affordability when all of a sudden those rates go back to 3.5%, 4.5%, 5.5%, kind of like in the summer of 18, when rates jumped up to 5.5%, 5.25%, 5.5%, because the Fed, they were trying to get off the quantitative easing. They were raising interest rates a little bit. As soon as they hit that 5 mark, Seattle, all these larger markets, affordability got crushed. The market got dampened. So do you see that we've kind of screwed ourselves, or the Fed's, set us up for failure here in the long run?
Yeah, there's no way not to, right? We've become accustomed to such cheap money. Asset valuations are taking that into account. We saw that in 2018, right? When rates started to run up, especially in the higher end market. Now, Tri-Cities, areas like that, it'll still be affected, just not as much because your variance in payment amount doesn't change as much. But when you're talking higher end market, like where we operate,
$607,000.
Yeah, $1.5 million, $2 million. At a certain point, people pay cash and they're just rich, right? And it don't matter. And that's one thing we've learned too. But there's that segment of the market that's higher end, that's higher leveraged, right? That higher end, higher leverage segment of the market, that is what is most takes the biggest beating when affordability starts to tick downward, right? And that could happen from an increase in interest rates. And we saw that in 2018, and we were selling a couple projects right at that point, and market got real soft for a few months there, comparatively to what it had been. And I think that's a precursor to what will happen. You'll start to see inventory stack because people won't adjust their prices. They'll get in a little bit of price warring downward, not too much, but a little bit. So prices will get a little soft. Those properties that are not great properties will probably take much more punishment than those that are great properties. So there'll be more disparity between good properties and great properties. Right now, you can put anything on the market and it sells within a very tight range, right? Yeah. Because the bad or worse properties that have functional obsolescence or challenges, they're not punished nearly as much as they should be because we're in an incredibly hot market. As we cool down, those properties will start to get punished a lot more, I think. But I don't think that's going to happen in 2021. If it does, it may be on the back end of that. But going into 2021, we have the lowest inventory ever recorded on record right now in Portland. And it's going to take a while to climb out of that. And we're not alone. I saw Steve Trang post a video this morning down in Phoenix. They have the lowest numbers ever there as well. So, there's a lot of metros across the country that are very similar in that regard.
Yeah. It's funny because you said you were looking at these charts. And I think you can look at charts and graphs, but what I think I'm learning over time in my short real estate career is, charts and graphs are fine, but there's so many different variables that go into play into the housing market, right? And so really thinking out, like right now, everybody's saying, oh, it's free money. Well, it is free money, essentially, if you keep the loan for 30 years. If you're changing it refining it every 5 years, it's not, because you're paying all the interest up front. So make sure you understand that thought process. But it is, if I'm refining all my properties, and we never refied before, we had property loans with 10 years, but it's so cheap on some of our rentals. We're getting 2.625 on rentals, 2.85. I mean, so it is, if I just keep that loan in place, don't pull any cash out, just keep it in place, and I let it ride out, it's free. I mean, with inflation, it's free. But the thing people have to remember, it's not normal people, investment bankers, brokerages, all these people that are buying these mortgages. The Fed is buying these mortgages. There are $2.1 trillion in mortgage-backed securities that they're buying. So it's artificially created. So to keep stimulus, keep the housing going. So everybody's been talking a lot about the 1031 going away with Biden and all that stuff. They can't kill real estate. They've already proven they're not going to kill real estate, or the world goes to, the whole world went to shit with just real estate as a catalyst in 2008. So
some city councils tried to.
Yeah, some city councils tried to, but yeah. So anyway, sorry. That's my thought process, guys, on that.
And I don't even look into that stuff. Like, honestly, like the numbers and all that kind of stuff. Like, a lot of people don't, and I don't. All I know is, like, 2021, I think it's going to be the best opportunity for off-market buying and selling in a long, long time. And 2022, 2023, I don't know what's coming in, but I mean, so far, I say this all the time, so far in my real estate career, if you want to call it a career, I don't even know what you call it yet. Like, my
preschool.
I'm in like the honeymoon phase. I'm still in like the honeymoon phase.
Real estate adventure. Yeah.
Hey, but I've been like, it's all happened one of the most economic prosperous times in 2011, 12 to now. There's no time like it. So I think that for me, 2021, I'm going to take advantage of it in every which way I can, and save as much money as I can. So whenever that does flip, whether it's 2022 or if they keep, who knows what levers they can pull, or it's 2030. Either way, I'm going to make sure that I capitalize this next year. I'm super locked in.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to flip. I don't. But next year, I think we'll be solid. And I think, again, it will definitely be the year of those that have mastered the skill of getting off-market deals, or, utilize services like All Magic to get off-market lead. That's where the money is. It has to be, because everything on market is just, it's way too expensive. You're playing a game of who wants to make the least money by a lot, right?
Or lose money.
Yeah. Because you're competing against, owner occupants who have watched HGTV way too long, and they think it's glamorous to actually fix up a house with their significant other. What they don't realize is it'll probably drive them to divorce and want to kill each other, and financial, but they'll figure that out along the way. But that's after they bid it up and buy it, right, instead of you. So, it's going to be an interesting year. I'm excited to get the hell out of 2020 for a variety of reasons, just because I do want life to go back to normal, as quickly as possible. We'll see how quickly that actually happens. But, it would be nice to be able to do some of the things that we used to be able to do, without, all the constraints that are put on us right now.
What about your community, Tucker? I mean, you talk about your business, but one of the things I think you've done really good in the last, 7-8 years of this podcast is you've built a really good community in the DFA. Like, I'm still a member of it. I love it. I was paying it for it up until we started, last month with Call Magic, and I'd still be paying it, I'd still be doing it. I met some of my best friends. You have a good community. You do some higher level coaching, what is your thought process moving forward on that? Like, what do you enjoy about that? What do you see you're, doing in the 2021 for kind of those things, and just building, and not to sell your coaching by any means, but like, what do you want to do in the community side of it, and the education and real estate, bringing people along that journey?
I mean, we're going to continue to build that community and strengthen the relationships that are within it right now. That's been one of the most rewarding parts of this whole journey for me. I mean, obviously, it makes money for us, but at the end of the day, that's secondary to the fact that I've met all these people, right? You included, from building this community. And so, I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. I mean, I'm not podcasting as much anymore, but like yesterday, I jumped on a call at 3:30 with one of the members of the community who had a development deal in Atlanta, and they just wanted my thoughts on how to go about it. Right. And so, I enjoy doing that. I mean, if I looked at dollars per hour, does it equate to the highest, that I should be doing or getting with my time? No, but there's an overarching value there that I get from that. Right. And it also builds bond in the community. And so I commit a lot to that. Right. I commit a lot to kind of building those bonds and using that community as a great incubator to help people move their businesses forward. Cause that's ultimately what that is. And so for me then to see these people to help incubate their business so that then they go off and hopefully do greater and bigger things. I mean, that's an awesome feeling for me. It's very fulfilling for me. So we're going to continue to do that to the best that we can, and continue to grow it and help more people. That's really, the plan at the end of the day.
What about personal? I mean, I think we want to hit on all these things a little bit, but what do you got going personal? I know you got a couple kids. They're cute. 4-year-old's crazy. 4, he's 4, right?
Yeah, he's 4.
He is crazy. I mean, I know you told me. Yeah, you told us you're like, he's a little crazy, and I'm like, he can't be that bad. Go to his house. He's freaking nuts. Yeah, I mean, he's bouncing off the walls. Little basketball player though, so.
Yeah, and then you guys thought maybe I was a bad parent or something, and I was like, nah, dude, they come as they are sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like, man, but then you figure it out. It's so easy with people that don't have kids, or maybe have that perfect kid. Like Monty's was pretty good up until he's turning 2. Yeah. But it's like, oh man, they're just really screwing us up. Don't pass judgment on other people until you lived in their shoes.
Ellie had a battle. He had a humbling battle last night with his 2-year-old.
Yeah. Kids are tough, man. There's one is tough until you have 2, and then you look back and you go, that was easy, and 2 is tough. And then of course, people that have more than that, I think they're just a little bit crazy, to be honest with you. But that's their life and their path. So, I'm done with kids. Yeah. I've gone under the knife. I'm done. And so I'm looking forward, to be honest, we're in kind of that tunnel of parenting where you kind of pop out the other side and you can kind of reemerge into life a little more. There's a section of time when you have multiple young kids that you're just not able to have the social life that you used to have, because there's this thing called naps that screws up your whole friggin' life. Right. And, kids and problems and challenges. So anyway, at a certain point, everybody pops back out and they're like, welcome back to life as you remember it, sort of prior to that whole time. So we're getting closer to that. I'm looking forward to it. I've always said I will be a better father as they get older than as they're younger. Not that I'm a bad father, but I just think I'll get more enjoyment out of it when they're a little bit older.
Things you like with it.
Yeah.
That's like I told people the first year of Monty's life. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, there's nothing. He does nothing. You're happy because he smiled, or he splashed in the bath. It's like, now it's getting more fun, but like Chrissy still does a lot of the work. Like, I don't have the patience to sit there on the toilet. Like last night, Cole said he kept going to go potty, and then he kept pulling his pants up because he wanted attention, because we were talking, right? So he wanted anything he could do to get attention. Just run around naked, fighting. Just
sounds like a normal day in my house, to be honest with you. But
yeah, that's with you running around naked and not getting, trying to get attention.
More my
Tony, look, I'm naked, running.
Yeah, look. Yeah, no, it's I wish it was that fun in my house, but no, it's more often the kids these days. So
cool.
That's what about you? What about you guys as we kind of wrap up here? What do you guys want to, I mean, we've got some big things on the horizon with Call Magic, obviously, which I like to talk about a little bit because, this has been a journey that, the podcast is a journey we're going on together, but Call Magic is an entrepreneurial journey that we're going on together. And, I'm obviously very psyched about, how quickly it's grown and how much, we've done, and then also kind of what we have on the horizon, but I'm interested in your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, on that end, it's such a cool experience. I've been able to implement so much from that into my other business as well, just how we've structured it and kind of the way that you've come in and chosen to run it. Has been super cool. But I mean, that thing, like talking about 2021 being the year of off-market marketing, that's what we specialize in now. That's what Elliot's putting 30, 40 hours a week in. I'm putting, around there in. We're all busting our ass on this thing to make it a platform for people to capitalize on years like 2021, so they can skip a lot of the legwork. I mean, I was just at a mastermind in Arizona, where a lot of people think that they know what they're doing with off-market marketing, but I think 2021, you want to make sure, whether it's us or someone else, that you're, working with someone that has the experience to capitalize on that. Because, spending money and feeling like you're doing something is a lot different than actually getting a good return on whatever you're doing for marketing. So, I mean, it's been a crazy journey. I think we've dug in all the way into as deep as you can to the tunnel of the best way to do it, from data to what metrics to track. I think we've explored every single route now, and have it pretty dialed in. So I'm super excited for 2021. I have 10. I'm going to go up to 20 callers probably in 2021 for my campaign. So.
Not only am I the hair club president, I'm also a client, right?
Yeah,
so that should say something, right?
Yeah, look at this hair. It's nice.
Yeah. I'm a number one client right now, and that's not going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I think it's a lot of excitement with that. So
I think the one thing I just want to mention about this too, because I've seen a lot of posts online where people are like, there was some guy yesterday that posted, he's like, I've got multiple cold callers trained up. Who wants them? Right. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, God, if some random dude connects with another random dude and hands them off cold callers they trained, they're going to have a terrible experience with cold calling. And then they're going to be like, screw cold calling, it doesn't work. Right. So I don't know, just food.
Which is fine. It makes it better for our clients.
It does. But I think people need to understand, like, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that your callers are actually trained, not only trained properly, but managed properly. Right. Yeah. And that's one of the value components that Call Magic provides to all of our customers. And of course, all of the callers that are calling for you as well, Cole. So there's more to it than just finding somebody that's going to hit the phones for you. So
like what people don't see is, I actually hop on the dialer every other week and record it so the guys can listen, so they can best practice. I feel what I go in the trenches with my guys to see what they're dealing with, right? What's our connect rates? Why is it taking long? Or what are we doing? How's this market look? Going into challenging markets, what's the challenge? So I can relay that to clients. I dive into numbers every week. I listen to calls every other week where I'm listening to calls. We hired 2 quality assurance managers. Our guys were bonused off quality of their conversations, not quantity of leads that they push through. Because a lot of guys can push through all these leads, but they're not leads. They don't even want to talk. They don't even know they're talking to you. They ask them one question. So we're trying to find the best practices. When we first started going this a couple months ago, my thought target was 3 minutes to 3.5 minute conversation. Well, I just increased that now on the quality assurance. Now it's 3.5 to 4 minutes and 15 seconds because I want to have time for rapport built in. And so we're building some of those things and trying to learn best practices. What's working on the client side of it? We've started out with allowing people to use part-time cold calling. And then we've figured out that the guys that have their foot half in, half out doesn't work that well. So now we're full-time. Now we're thinking, man, the guys that are doing really well are have multiple callers, they need to have, a consistent lead flow coming in. And we are providing lead flow with one caller, but it just seems like you need more opportunity. And then how do we price it? So it's very, there's a lot of in the weeds. I mean, guys, I can't tell you enough. Like when we started this journey with Cole and Tucker and, Tucker came on and we're like, man, maybe we'll get a couple calls from him a week, kind of oversee, kind of be the CEO role. Freaking Tucker, I'm getting emails from Tucker, detailed emails, after our hour calls. We have hour calls. I mean, I call Tucker before we started the call center. I call him, maybe we talk once a month, maybe. But he's busy. And so I was trying to respect that. Now I can talk to him any day I want. I think 97% of the time he answers the phone or he says, hey, I'm busy. I'll call you right back or whatever. And we can figure out the best practices going
Tucker, Elliot really likes to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I pick up his calls now. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, but we all talk to each other and we
Yeah.
all respond, and it's like the amount of effort that guys are going to say is Tucker's built a lot of businesses, and to have him, he's in this daily, and so it's pretty cool because we all are invested and we're all investors. Like we're trying to make it work for investors, and then we're always growing and changing best practices.
Yeah. I mean, a real estate company is really 3 or 4 companies in one. You got a marketing company, you got a disposition company that you're matching up whether you're doing off market buying yourself. And you have like the main part, which is operations, systems, admin, hiring, firing. And especially in 2021, like we've all been talking about how we're leading out our businesses. It's like me personally, there's a lot of stuff I used to do in-house that I no longer do in-house. Like we used to have like lead managers in-house. Now we're outsourcing our lead managers virtual. So I think a lot of people get kind of this weird like guilt or shame as entrepreneurs type A. They want to control everything, or like letting go of the vine on marketing, whatever it is, but it's powerful. And it's changed my business dramatically.
Yeah.
2021 is going to be the year of getting off market deals, right? So,
and here's so 2021 wrap, kind of get done going. My 2021 is going to be the year of focus. That's like, I'm going to set some parameters of what I'm focused on, my buckets. I want to do some developments. We got some, off market marketing strategies we're putting in place for that. I'm going to get out at paper lots so I don't have to worry about the full development stuff. I just want to go find the deals, see the process, get paid at paper lots, go after rentals and, distress houses that we can turn into either a rental or whatever. And then Call Magic, really focus on Call Magic and the podcast, which kind of loop into one because it's, we're promoting the Call Magic on that, but we're also building that community and building our community. So I think that's all in one encompassing. So really trying to get focused. I had a call yesterday with a guy that, actually the show is dropping this week, Mike Ayala, and he gave me 45 minutes to kind of break down what we need. And I've been on the fence, and one of our good buddies, Greg, was talking about hiring a purchasing manager for his business because they're growing. And so at first they were looking at an entry level person or whatever, but then he started thinking, he's like, I don't have time to train this person. So I'm gonna get somebody that's dialed right now and pay more. And so that's kind of what we were figuring out. What do I need to pay? Because we need to replace Chrissy a lot because she's the one that is the glue for the business, make sure everything's going. She's the integrator. I'm the visionary. I'm the integrator, or she's the integrator. You can't, we found out yesterday is you kind of need a visionary to a certain extent, but you have to have an integrator. So like Tucker, you're our integrator. You're making sure you're the glue to a certain extent, right? And so we need to hire maybe 10% of my stuff out, but 90% of the stuff Chrissy's doing. And in order to get that competent person that can cross paths a little bit, we need to pay good money. And so I think that's what we kind of figured out, and we just broke the math down. So, but that's hard. And if you're looking at hiring people or spending money on, cold calling or direct mail or whatever, like you always think, well, I can get more mailers, or I can get more callers, or I can get more employees if I go cheaper. Well, you get what you pay for. And I really found out over the years, you really get what you pay for. Our response rate when we were sending shit letters out was terrible. We started doing Tucker stuff and spending more. Response rates went up. We were trying cold calling. We started using Cole's guys. Our response rates went up, but because you're paying people that already have the skills and already know the best practices, right? And so that's really, but that's a hard thing to come do. It's freaking hard. I mean, it's hard to pull that trigger and say, if I'm going to pay somebody $80,000 a year for this position, which is probably what it's really worth, that's a freaking lot of money, and not even just that, there's taxes and, all these overhead costs, and you got to office them. And, where do we do that? I'm in my house right now. So,
but at the end of the day, it's most often worth it, which same thing with cold calling, right? So like you could go and find your own whoever for 50 cents an hour to call people, but the results are going to speak to that, right? Versus, hiring, a company like ours that we're in the weeds, making sure the service is good and the callers are good constantly. It's different thing, but it's the same thing, right? You get what you
same with
for.
data, right? I hear guys come to me, hey, I can get data for 3 cents. I said, I can't even buy it for 3 cents to resell it to you. So I'm guessing that data shit. And we've tried them all. This is the data we tried and works best for our business. We're not trying to, make a ton of money off it. So you get what you pay for in life. Kind of like going to IKEA versus going to Anthropology or whatever, these higher end furniture stores. The IKEA one's going to last maybe 6 months to a year. The other one's going to last forever.
Well, I'll give you one more example as we wrap up here. So 7 years ago, I hired somebody that was more expensive than what I wanted to pay. That person was Dan.
Yeah.
Been with me for 7 years. And that was a position that grew over time. Things changed that he did. But looking back, I'm glad I paid a little more at that time because I was fighting that inner investor in me to be cheap, right?
Yeah.
And I paid what he was worth at that time, and it was the best decision I ever made in terms of at least the last person that I hired.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why you've had longevity, right? With even Chris and him, is you pay your guys well. You pay them what they're worth, and you get that skill position.
I gave my top sales guy half the company, and I got people are like, "What are you doing?" You like, I've never made it. That's the best decision I made in my life so far. Probably.
Besides, like, me.
That wasn't just. That was just me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, I think, guys, whether it's our business, direct mail, whatever you're doing, you can go farther, get the expertise, get the guys that are doing it. We're not trying to pitch you on all our services. Just when you're out there, find the guys that are legit. Don't shop price all the time. Sometimes you get what you pay for. So,
yeah. All right. Well, this was a hell of a roundtable, huh?
Yeah.
People liked it. It was fun to come back on the microphone.
Yeah.
Chat with you guys.
Yeah. We missed you.
Yeah.
The listeners missed you. So anyway, well, let's wrap it up, guys. Let's have a good Christmas. Let's have a good New Year. Let's say F you to 2020. Let's get out there. There's opportunities, guys. This is where everybody's going to shine. So get out there, go build a business. Don't just do it as a hobby. Build a business. This is the year to do it. A lot of people are making good money right now. Go get after it. You can do it. Check the DFA out if you guys want to do it. Best decision I've ever made for a mastermind. Other than that, that's it.
See you guys next week.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See ya.